Movies can have a lasting impression on you and bring back great memories. Certain images you will always remember. Things that have been with me all my life and keep getting added to with every movie I see.
I will turn this place into the fucking Wild Bunch if I think you are fucking with me.
E.T. phone home.
This is the end of your rotten life, you motherfucking dope pusher!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Welcome to my Celluloid Heart Podcast, Season 4, Episode 141. We're back to doing two movies put together by one topic or theme over two episodes, in case you don't know what we do here. I'm your host, Phillip Duke, and I'm here with...
his cousin Chip. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. We have no corrections for this last week's show.
Yeah.
We kind of made them on the fly, you know. We were like, what was that thing Brian De Palma did? And you were like, I have no idea. I'm looking up Michael J. Fox. I'm finding all these TV episodes, and I'm like, no, look up Brian De Palma. And you're like, who's Brian De Palma?
We need an assistant.
Yeah, but then that costs money. Unless I just have somebody sitting here. You know, I have to have somebody here with us while we're talking to be like, hang on.
Sean.
But also, we have phones. Sean's probably asleep already. We have phones and we have things.
But he could be like screaming it at us, like the
right.
people that are listening to us are.
Yeah, exactly. He'd just come in and yell, it's so and so. But also, him not knowing movies wouldn't know where to start the search. So if we were like, it was that movie with Sean Penn, and he'd be like, he'd come in and go, was it Fast Times at Ridgemont High? And we'd be like, no, it was another. And then he'd go to the next one. Was it this? Was it Bad Boys? No, it wasn't Bad Boys. Okay. Remember
So
Bad Boys?
The answer
that
by the
one,
end of the show.
Remember Bad Boys? That one frightened me like Outsiders did. I skipped over your joke. What was your joke? What was your joke? Please say.
I said that it would be funny though, because he would finally have the answer by the end of the show.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe then it'd be a correction. Oh yeah, Sean told us the correction is the newest movie that Sean Penn just did. The Bad Boys, remember he was like, it was on cable a lot, and he was like in a boys' prison, like a juvenile or something in this prison. I just remember that was like scary of like, I don't want to be in a prison with a bunch of guys like that. Just same way Outsiders, like I don't want to be beat up by a gang. So that one really sticks with me.
You know what's weird? It's a weird connection, but I know of that movie and Falcon and the Snowman being two movies that, for whatever reason, when I was younger, I just thought depressed me, and every time I saw that they were on, I had to turn them off. That's
interesting. Yeah. That's kind of true. And it could maybe be that way with you and I mentioned Billie Jean, the trial of Billie Jean. What was it called?
Legend of Billie Jean.
Legend of Billie Jean, where that one I think has a little sadness to it. And you almost go, it's a good movie, but I don't watch it a lot. Same thing with, speaking of Bad Boys. Remember that one, The Boys Next Door, with Charlie Sheen and I think it was Michael Biehn? And they were both bad guys, and they like robbed a place and shot a guy, and like
it was like, you mentioned this before to me like last week, and I don't remember.
It was like a murder thing, and it was like, holy shit. So it was crazy. In the other room, Chip, playing Stripes. I think it's the graduation scene. The graduation scene.
Jack.
The girls are like, where are they? And they're gonna boom chugga-lugga. Anyway, let's not do. We already did a Stripes episode.
We did it. Go watch it.
That's right. And check out the Letterboxd. I have a list of all the movies that we've done. It's quite cool. All right, Chip, are you ready to get into this movie?
I am. I am so much.
All right. Now on with the show.
Hi and Edwina wanted a family in the worst way.
I need a baby high. They got more than they can handle.
So they borrowed one.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family.
You wet yourself. You wet yourself.
Right. You take that diaper off your head. You put it back onto your sister.
Hold on, Nathan. We're going to go pick up Daddy.
Raising Arizona. If they're the family next door, move.
It ain't Ozzie and Harriet.
Rated PG-13.
Raising Arizona, 1987. The plot: when a childless couple, this is kind of written weird, when a childless couple of an ex-con and an ex-cop decide to help themselves to one of another family's quintuplets, their lives become more complicated than they anticipated. Stars Nicolas Cage as High Mcdonough. Kevin Costner auditioned 3 times
Damn.
to play High. Wouldn't that be weird? Like Kevin Costner playing High.
You're not good enough, sir.
But also, like, now when you look at Kevin Costner made himself the star that he is. So you can't see him playing anybody lower than somebody like John Goodman or maybe John Goodman, like commanding a presence.
Yeah.
Like for Kevin Costner, you're like, I couldn't see you as High Mcdonough, you know, but also it would be really cool. But he saw Nicolas Cage snag the role. Richard Jenkins had his first of many auditions for the Coens for Raising Arizona. So I don't know if he was going for that. He's probably going for maybe the Glenn part or maybe Nathan, Arizona.
Yeah.
And you know who Richard Jenkins is? He's in that movie that you hate, Step Brothers, which is really funny. And he was in.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I just
don't like Will.
Something about like if I could be watching something else, I probably would.
Sometime down the road, we got to watch that because it's hilarious.
We have to do a Will Ferrell
something force you
infusion
to watch
into me. Yeah, two movies by Will Ferrell.
But anyway, Richard Jenkins, in case you didn't know, he's in Shape of Water. He's the guy that's her neighbor, you know, the deaf girl's neighbor, and he was in Step Brothers and all that. Anyway, so. But he unsuccessfully auditioned for Miller's Crossing in 1990 and for Fargo in 96 before calling it quits with the Coens. But in 2001, Joel and Ethan cast Jenkins in The Man Who Wasn't There, even though he had never auditioned for it. So that's kind of cool that they remember him and they're like, hey, let's reach out to him. He's perfect. Kind of like our RECAST did, where they're like, I think he'd be good in this role.
So it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Like they just knew that he was supposed to be in something. They just had to find the right thing.
Exactly. And the relationship between the actor and the filmmakers was said to have been respectful but tense between Nic Cage and the Coen brothers. The Coens are notorious for having a distinct vision of their script and style, while Cage was eager to bring his own ideas to the production. Despite any differences, they managed to make a great film together. So there's a book that came out in 2001 by Josh Levine called The Coen Brothers, The Story of Two American Filmmakers. And Cage said that, quote, Joel and Ethan have a very strong vision, and I've learned how difficult it is to accept another artist's vision. They have an autocratic nature. So I've heard other people explain that too. Like you can't go to somebody like the Coens or maybe, you know, Stanley Kubrick or any of the, like they got their vision. It's like, no, like you can't go to James Cameron and be like, here's what I see. And he's like, I have in my head, I have all the computer generated stuff. I have an idea. Here's what it is. Don't mess with it.
Yeah.
So that was cool where it's like, yeah, you can't, you know. And then though Cage and the Coens apparently didn't agree on everything, they seemed to be on the same page with the tone of the film. The movie plays out like a live action cartoon, and Cage even saw High as a cartoon character, specifically Woody Woodpecker, along with getting a tattoo of a Woody Woodpecker like drawing on his arm for the role. Cage tried to style his look to resemble the cartoon character. His hair was fashioned into a wild, spiky mess, and the more insane High's adventures would get, the wilder the hairdo would get. So they said as his stress level increased, his hair would get like insane. Which That's is awesome. Hilarious. Holly Hunter as Ed, like it's perfectly cast. Like it's just, and Holly Hunter, she's always good. Like she's just, you know, and she's so down home Southern, like that's her real accent. Like that's really her. So unlike their casting search for High, the Coens knew exactly who they wanted to play Ed. Holly Hunter was an up and coming actor at the time and friends with the brothers. Hunter was actually the Coens' first choice for the leading lady of Blood Simple for Chip. That's their first movie that they did. When Hunter couldn't do the part due to scheduling, she recommended her roommate, Frances McDormand, who would later go on to marry Joel Coen. This time around, the part of Ed was written specifically with Hunter in mind. So now they're like, oh, we got her, like, write it for her.
That was going to be my question, was because I saw Frances McDormand and I was wondering, when did they get married? Was it
I think they
around this movie or
I think they started dating maybe around Blood Simple and then got married maybe shortly after. I'm not real sure. But someday also, just like our Sean Penn and our Will Ferrell, we'll do a Coen Brothers and we'll dive into that stuff because I do want you to see Blood Simple. It's really cool.
Okay.
And did you notice that the cinematographer of this was Barry Sonnenfeld?
No, I did not.
Men in Black. Yeah. He was on, he did Blood Simple and he did this.
Oh,
And
sweet.
he did. And then also, we'll get to it later, but that camera move. It's a total Raimi, and they all grew up together, like helping each other make. I'm gonna help you make Evil Dead. You help me make Blood Simple, like whatever. Like awesome.
Well, and the coolest thing that I saw, as far since we're talking about camera, was the shot like when one of the babies was kind of moving,
Yeah,
and the camera just kind of woo, almost like a car, just like I don't know, drifting to the side while getting the baby just perfectly in the shot. I was like, that was fucking badass.
Yeah, like would follow the one baby and then go to the other, and then that tense moment of the baby going to the stairs. Right before it gets to the stairs, Hai comes out and grabs the baby, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Trey Wilson as Nathan Arizona Sr., John Goodman as Gale, William Forsythe as Evil, not evil, Evil. Sam McMurray as Glenn. So I don't know if you watch King of Queens, but he was his boss on King of Queens, and he's funny on there. And I told the wife, I said, when this part came up, I'm like, look who it is. When he came with the neck brace, I'm like, look who it is. She goes, who is it? Because you can't tell. And I'm like, that's O'Boyle. And she's like, holy shit.
Well, the Nathan Arizona Sr., right when I heard his voice, I was like, oh man,
that other guy would have been good for it. The guy from the ranch.
No.
And War
it
Games
made me
guy.
think of Last Boy Scout. I was like, this man goes on to own the football team.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of the other guy would have been good to recast it back then. Maybe would be the guy from War Games, the guy from the ranch that was a vet on the ranch. He was in that Charlie Sheen movie or show. But anyway, Sam McMurray, who played Glenn, McMurray remembers that one day during production, he and Cage went out to eat at Denny's or one of those places, and an excited female fan came over to their table. She couldn't decide if the man she was looking at was really Cage. Once convinced it was him, she asked him for an autograph. And then he says, quote, she had like a wet cocktail napkin, McMurray recalled, and he wrote, tomorrow you will die, Nic Cage. And I thought it was hysterical. Like you have that, like how funny. That's so awesome.
That's
awesome. Frances McDormand as Dot. Randall Tex Cobb is Leonard Smalls, and he used to be a boxer. He didn't know much about acting. They had to teach him how to ride a motorcycle, all this stuff.
Oh, wow.
One of the most memorable characters in the film is a motorcycle riding gunman known as Leonard Smalls. In creating the characters, the Coens attempted to come up with a terrifying, nightmarish figure who came not from their own minds, but from the mind of Hai. The filmmakers cast professional boxer Randall Tex Cobb in the role, though he certainly had the look and intimidation factor of the character. Cobb was another problematic member of the cast. He didn't know how to ride a motorcycle, which was pretty key for the character, and not being a professional actor had difficulty even with Small's brief moments of dialogue.
Yikes.
So yeah, and I remember him from Uncommon Valor and all that. So written by, and my dad remembers him. He was on a Johnny Carson episode, and Johnny Carson said, "What are you?" And he goes, "I'm a full-blooded man." Like my dad just remembers that macho something. Written by Joel and Ethan Coen and directed by Joel Coen. So they say usually they kind of co-direct. Like one talks to the actors, they both wrote it, so they know how they want it.
Nice.
So originally when planning their second feature, the Coens had another story in mind that they wanted to tackle. They had intended on turning their script for the Hudsucker Proxy into their next film. But the budget required to tell that ambitious story was still too high for them to acquire at the time. Though they would eventually get the chance to make that film several years later, the idea did seep into Raising Arizona in small ways. Hai's work uniform says that he works for Hudsucker Industries, which would be at the center of the later film. So that's good. No, Bill Parker, yeah, goddamn. Oh, I love that guy. They actively tried to make a film that went in a totally different direction from Blood Simple. Instead of a dark tale about immoral people, they wanted an upbeat romp filled with likable protagonists. Even critics who dislike Raising Arizona had to admit it was a definite departure from their first film. So here comes the cool part. Are you ready? Hold on tight, Mr. Doctor Strange in the Madness universe. Sam Raimi was also a close friend of the Coens and even collaborated with them several times. The Coens had written Raimi's film Crime Wave, which I got to look up now. I want to watch this movie. And he collaborated with them on the script for The Hudsucker Proxy. Raimi's influence as a filmmaker can be seen throughout Raising Arizona, especially in the shots in which a camera races towards the characters, a technique Raimi made famous in The Evil Dead.
Sweet.
So Carter Burwell did the music, and he works with the Coens a lot. The influence behind the music was meant to be Southern charm mixed with Looney Tunes. Like, that's why it's so wild. The wild banjo playing mixed with the yodeling makes for a catchy and pitch perfect theme song for this story, which is true. It's so like, especially like, I always forget that that's the beginning of the movie. Like it starts, you're like, okay. And then it goes, wah, and you see Raising Arizona, Nic Cage, Holly Hunter. You're like, oh, awesome.
Yep.
So
you're so far into the movie that you're not even thinking that I haven't seen the intro part yet. And I was like, bam, there it is.
Yeah, you're like, awesome. And they kind of did that. Big Lebowski kind of started that way and then went into something like maybe anyway. Big Lebowski is another one Chip's got to see, because that was another one that he watched and was like, I don't get it. But there's layers to that. It's great. Okay, now we're on to Recasted, Chip. But I want to tell you to put Glenn and Dot right after Evel Snotes and before Leonard Smalls. Okay?
Okay.
Glenn first and then Dot. Okay. Are you ready for mine?
Yes.
Okay, everybody. Hold tight. Dax Shepard as Herbert High Mcdonough.
Nice.
Because I was like, who is somebody who looks like a criminal, but also could be funny?
Poor Dax Shepard.
Could be funny. Well, you know, he was raised in a, you know, he would say poor trash, white trash, whatever. Somebody that could command that could be like a hillbilly, but funny. And he was in that show. I forget what it was called, where they owned a farm, and it was funny. Anyway, are you ready for Edwina?
Yes.
Kristen Wiig as Edwina Ed McDonough. So I see her being like Southern and being like, you know, Dave Bautista as Gail Snotes, because he could be funny, you know, maybe. I was just thinking it's somebody big, somebody older, maybe than the person that I'm going to give you now for Evel Snotes, Zach Galifianakis. Like I could see him being like, he smiled at me.
That's true.
And then this is one I had to have Chip look it up. So everybody get on your IMDb, look up Reno 911. If you've seen Reno 911, Robert Garant as Glenn. So he'd be the, you know, your wife you want to swap wives? I kind of find Ed kind of pretty. And Wendy McClendon Covey, also from Reno 911, as Dot. Nice. So I could see them. For one, they do comedy great. For two, they worked on Reno 911 forever, and they're good. They're good with acting off of each other. And this one, I'm not sure. You'd have to dirt him up, and maybe he's too comical, maybe whatever now. But John Cena as Leonard Smalls. Nice. But I was thinking of somebody. So this is where my thought went. For John Cena, I was like, I want like a wrestler, but somebody like Mankind. That's like really like looking like that guy and like looking gruff, but not, you know, and playing the part. And then I was like, well, John Cena, he'd have to be dirtied up and be like, you know, whatever. Yeah. But that's cool. What I got. Chip, what do you got?
I got a zinger. This stuff's gonna throw you for a loop.
Get some coffee.
All right. For High, I have Pete Davidson.
Oh, Chip. Fuck, I'm ready to cancel this show. If you're a Pete Davidson fan, I mean, he's funny.
Actually, I wasn't until he was on The Rookie. When he was playing his brother, he did really well
Interesting.
He's actually really good.
I heard he's good in that other movie that just came out. Well, came out during COVID, and what's that called? The King of Staten Island. Like he's supposed to be good in it.
Yeah.
But
just
yeah,
the way
okay.
he acted in that, I was thinking about it, going like, I could see him.
I could
because
see
he
that.
plays kind of like the clueless dumbass when it comes to being his brother, because he's trying to go straight. He's a druggie, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And his brother's a freaking cop, so
yeah,
kind of a thing. But for his wife Ed, I put Zoe Deschanel.
Interesting. Like being hillbilly, being not hillbilly, but what I would call hillbilly, because not really Arizona. Although I had a friend from New Jersey who was like, "You have an accent," and I'm like, "No, you have an accent. I'm from Jersey, maybe." He's like, "No, you don't hear it, but you have an Arizona accent." I'm like, "Oh wow." No, that'd be interesting.
Well, I found out that our accent is that we don't have an accent.
Yeah. Well, and you and I are so laid back, we don't give a shit. But yeah, pretty much.
All right, here we go.
Okay,
For Gail's
notes. Yep.
I have Clayne Crawford.
Clayne Crawford. What is? Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Yes. That would be interesting. Yeah. In case nobody of you know, Clayne Crawford is from Lethal Weapon season 1. Was it 1 and 2?
Maybe, yeah. Then they replaced him in 3.
Third was the other guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, he played Riggs in TV's Lethal Weapon. Okay.
So I saw him as Gale, and I needed somebody younger and kind of stupid,
kind of dumb.
Yeah. For Evel, is that how you say Evel?
Yeah.
So I put Cameron Monaghan.
And who is this guy?
On Gotham, he played the Joker, like he became the Joker.
Oh, the kid that you showed, Chip.
Yeah.
I had not watched Gotham at all, and Chip was like, "You got to see episode 16, season 1." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I watch it, and I'm like, "Holy shit!" Like the end of that, his lawyer's got like a purple hat, purple fucking. You're like, "That's where you got the purple from." He's fucking creepy ass dude. Fucking, that'd be awesome. I don't know about, because he's also from, isn't he from? What's that show with isn't he on a show on Netflix called something with an S list?
Yes. I am blanking on it now.
Damn it.
Because he's with the guy from Fargo.
Yeah. William H. Macy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's on the tip of my tongue too. Everybody's yelling at us. Shameless.
Yes.
You're welcome. You're welcome, everybody. This Chip's still typing in there. But I think he plays one of the sons. All right, Chip, what do you got for Glenn? I'm curious.
All right. So for Glenn, I have Nathan Fillion as a connection to the Rookie.
Yeah. Cool.
For Dot, I have Kate McKinnon, because I could see her with a bad wig. I just finally finished the Joe and Carol, the Tiger King thing. Because I was like, I have 2 episodes left. I might as well finish this fucking thing. And I did, and it was good, and it was totally changed some of the dramatic stuff, but it was good. But yeah, she did good in that. And who do you got for Leonard Smalls? And you kept saying Dave Bautista, and that's who I had.
I almost went with Dave Bautista for the Leonard Smalls. I first was gonna go for The Rock, because I was like, you want some big imposing scary dude, but also The Rock's gonna take over the whole movie.
Yeah.
So you don't want that.
Yeah.
But those are good. But I really like my choices. I like yours. I might want to mix and match with yours and mine, but I really like Zach Galifianakis as Evel. And maybe not Dave Bautista as Gale. Maybe you're Gale, Zach Galifianakis, and what's his name? But yeah, that's great. I love it. So Chip, how did this movie come into your life? We talked about, you saw it on cable, you didn't really get it. Was that like right after it came out, or this was years later? It was replayed.
I think so. I think it was like, every time I watched it, it was very much like, for me, I guess when I think back to that, I have a feeling of that it's too hectic. too much shit was going on and all at once, and the shooting and the running and the and cars and everything, and which I kind of felt again watching it at this point to a point, but I knew what was going on and how everything linked together.
Yeah. And
like
that it was like the Looney Tunes, like a live action Looney Tunes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, of course, for anybody who's watching this movie, if you're watching it, you're thinking these cops are not going to be shooting in a full
run.
Yeah. Well, like they're shooting up and down aisles of a grocery store where there are people that are having to duck and move. They're not going to actually do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of the Looney Tunes part of it. But I think that's probably why back then I was like, what the hell is this? Kind of a thing. And so now watching it, I'm like, okay, I get it. Understanding that.
I think my rewatch of it. So I saw it back in the day. I was like, oh, I heard this is good. And I watch it and I'm like, he's having a dream about this bounty hunter, but then that is the bounty hunter that goes to talk to Nathan Sr. Like, wait a minute, and so that kind of threw me out. Like the wackiness of it was like, wait, what kind of, then you rewatch it. You kind of sit down and you get all the jokes now. You're not watching it to try to put it together. You're watching it for what it is. And you get like him fighting in Joe and I's favorite part is him fighting inside the trailer, and he brings his arms up and he scratches them on the popcorn ceiling. He's like, and then they get in this silly fight. And so then when I watch it again, then I got more out of it. And I was like, and then Joe and I would do all the lines, these balloons blow into funny shapes at all, not unless round is funny. And just all that good stuff, even the diptet stuff, which is funny, the way she just, those words, like I said, Chip and I talked off mic, the way the Coens put the words together. So it's not unless round's funny. It's not unless round is funny. Like it's something about that put together. Same thing with diptet. That might have not been funny in some other thing, but the way she said diptet, and then I like my favorite part, Joe and I too. What if it gets carried off by a twister? And you're like, what the fuck? Get that.
And the look on her face, so serious, where she just
he's
dead,
just like,
dead straight
okay.
looking at him.
I will
get carried off by a twister like that, and I was like, what the hell? And then it cuts away. I was like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm sitting there going, it's Arizona.
Yeah.
No.
Well, true. But we had some tornadoes back in the day in around 86. I remember my dad and I drove around. I don't know if they were tornadoes, but they were really strong winds where they pulled a palm tree out of the ground. And that's pretty heavy. I remember my dad drove me over. It was like, look at this. All right, Chip, you ready for listener opinions?
Yes, I is.
Well, you gotta have an opinion.
Well, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one.
I hated this movie.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
I like it! Opinions vary.
All right, Chip, you have a couple to read first.
Yes, I do.
All right.
Let's see. Thomas Healy, an old buddy of mine, he put, I've never seen it.
Oh, need to see this movie.
Well, and I did respond to him basically saying that I watched it a long time ago when I was too young to appreciate it, pretty much. And
right.
I'm glad I'm watching it again.
Yeah.
And then the second one I have is Kelly B. She put, love it, but I love the Coen Brothers.
Cool.
As you should, as everybody should.
Speaking of this,
B is my wife's best friend. So
speaking of this, before I get on to mine, thank you for that, Chip. How many Coen Brothers movies have you seen? Have you seen Miller's Crossing? Have you seen that's a no. Chip shaking his head on a podcast. This is audio medium, Chip. You've seen Fargo. You've seen Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Have you seen that?
No.
Have you seen Hail Caesar, like the newest, semi-newest one? Did you watch on Netflix the Western, the Ballad of Buster Scruggs? Did you see that one? Okay, I guess I should ask you instead of going down the list. What Coen Brothers movies have you seen? Fargo, Raising Arizona,
Fargo, Raising Arizona. What is it? The Lady Killers.
Okay.
Big Lebowski. What's the one where they got awards for recent?
Not Hail Caesar. The other one, awards for. Not the Shakespeare. You haven't watched that movie, right?
No. I thought there was one that they did with
they got The Man Who Wasn't There. I think you saw that one, didn't you? With Billy Bob.
Yeah, no, I didn't see that one either.
Okay. Hang on.
There's one with is it damn it. Javier Bardem, was he in?
Yeah, No Country for Old Men. Sorry, that's
Yes,
the most
that
important, the best fucking one. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yes. Okay, so we got Blood Simple, Raising Arizona, Miller's Crossing, Barton Fink. Did you see Barton Fink?
Nope.
Hudsucker Proxy.
Nope.
Fargo.
Yes.
The Big Lebowski.
Yes.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
No.
The Man Who Wasn't There.
No.
Intolerable Cruelty.
No.
George Clooney and what's her name? The Lady Killers. Yes.
Yes.
No Country for Old Men.
Yes.
Burn After Reading.
No.
Is that one with Brad Pitt dancing? Him and her trying to.
Oh wait. Yes. Because he has the headphones.
Him and
in
France.
he's
Yeah.
doing it.
And him and Frances McDormand are planning.
Yeah. I did see that one.
A Serious Man. And like it didn't have a lot of big actors in it, but that's one that I haven't seen. True Grit.
Yes.
Did you see True Grit? Okay. Inside Llewellyn Davis.
No.
Oscar Isaac in it. Hail Caesar.
No.
The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. No. And Tragedy of Macbeth, which I haven't seen.
Nope.
All right. You ready to get to ours then? Tim Martin wrote, quote, Nic Cage should have a ton of segments on your show. Nic Cage part 3 and 4, 5 and 6, etc. I said agreed. My friend Petros at Caged In Pod. I was on Caged In Pod episode 60. We did Stolen, where his cab is stolen. I forget, his daughter's stolen. Somebody's stolen, and he has to go get him back. It was fun. He wrote, "Where was my invite?" Because you should have been invited. I'm doing a Nicolas Cage. I was like, true, but you're in England. I'm here. Like it's hard. Cyrus 98 wrote, one of the best of all time for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph Darlington at Being James Bond wrote perfection! Exclamation point. Jason Bromley from Popcorn Promises wrote, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I remember watching it on HBO as a kid and just thinking, what is this? It's so weird and I love it. I suddenly wanted all movies to be like this. Sadly, only the Coen Brothers can do movies like this, and we have only had a handful of them since. This was the Coens at their finest. The cast of this movie is perfection. This role was made for Nic Cage. I fell in love with Holly Hunter in her cop uniform. John Goodman and William Forsythe were comedy gold, and Randall Tex Cobb was the scariest biker I've ever seen. If I had a genie with one wish, it would be to see a sequel to this movie and see what all these characters are up to today. Brant Dodson wrote, I first saw Raising Arizona when I was in high school. I watched it over at a friend's house, and he and I would constantly quote the movie for days after we saw it. Son, you got a panty on your head. I also grew up in Mesa, Arizona, where much of the movie was filmed, so I love seeing familiar places captured on film. Raising Arizona is one of the Coen Brothers' best films, surreal in its imagery, hilarious on the surface, with great filmmaking underneath. I love this movie to this day. 5 hearts, unquote.
Sweet.
So, yes, thank you, everyone. All right, Chip, you ready to discuss this thing?
Yes.
All right. Convenience store robber Hi Mcdonough meets police officer Edwina as she takes his mugshots before one of his multiple stays in prison. During a later stay, Hi learns that Ed's fiance has left her and proposes to her after being released. They marry and move into a desert mobile home, and Hi gets a job in a machine shop. So, first of all, I got in trouble with the law way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I had a thing. Should I say here? I had a DUI, and it was stupid. And I learned so much from that. But I got arrested, taken downtown in Scottsdale. I'm explaining to the guy, like, this is really a learning experience for me, but I think they're still thinking like I'm drunk or something. And so they're just like, whatever. And I'm like, oh, fingerprints, digital fingerprints, this is pretty cool. And then we go to take my picture, and the guy's like real far away, and he's going, and he goes, okay, look here. And I go, where's the camera? Like, you're so far away. Where is it? He goes, it's up in the ceiling. I said, oh. And then he goes, turn to the right. And I start laughing, and he goes, what? I go, reminds me of Raising Arizona. And he goes, oh my God, yes, I love that movie. I go, me too. And then we then it was like, okay, all barriers are down. Now I get that, yes, you're totally just taking this for all your punishment for what it is. So it's just funny. Turn to the right. I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, and if they knew you, they'd know that that's how you're going to be when you're also nervous.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
because you're being fingerprinted and stuff.
Yeah, true. But also, I was one of the first things, just to tell everybody, that was funny, that I didn't mean it to be, probably scared them all. When you first go in, when you're being processed, and I walked up to the window, they bring you to the Sally port, the car stops, they get you out, you go in, they'd have you take off your belt and your shoes and your socks and everything, and so I'm standing there, and they go, put your finger on this little thing. It's like a little cone with a little light on top, and you put your finger on it to take your index fingerprint. So I go to they go, put your finger there. I go, oh wow, does that go to Interpol or something? And they're like looking at me, and I go, no, I'm not wanted by Interpol. I'm just saying that's pretty cool. And they're like, okay, this guy's drunk. I'm like, no, I'm not. So yeah, it's funny. They marry and move into a mobile home, and Hi gets a job. They want to have children, but Ed is infertile, and they're unable to adopt due to Hi's criminal record. I tell you, everything goes back to Thief, Chip. It's a chink kid. You gotta, send a kid. I grew up in this system. It's a broken system. Hi and Ed learn of the quintuplet sons known as the Arizona Quints, born to regionally famous furniture magnate Nathan, Arizona, and kidnap one of the babies, whom they believe to be Nathan Jr. So what's funny here too is unpainted Arizona, like unpainted furniture, like, oh, like how horrible. Upon returning home, so then there's that chase. So he doesn't want to steal the baby. He's like, I don't know. And she's like, oh, and also when they're like, it's called recidivism. Are you just telling us? He's like, are you gonna be a repeat offender? He's like, no. Are you just telling us what we want to hear? We don't want you to lie. Okay, yes. If that's the case, then yeah, I am telling you what you want to hear. Well, you can't do that. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. And then you meet Gail and them in the prison, like, oh, so good.
Well, and you mentioned right at the beginning, they believe it to be Nathan Jr. I loved it throughout the whole movie. Whenever they're asking, they even ask the father, goes, I think it's Nathan Jr. that they took. Like, I don't know. Like, nobody knows for sure, because they have so many kids that look exactly the same.
Well, and the other thing,
the fact that they don't have them separated in the crib, they're all together with the names. I'm like, they can move all over the place. You're never gonna know.
Yeah. Well, and the thing of when he doesn't even know what they slept in, because they're like, what kind of pajama? I don't know. They had Yodas and shit on them. I don't know. But that part was good too. Like the cops trying to ask him questions, the FBI at the same time, and they're just so good. Upon returning home, Hi's old cellmates Gail and Evel Snotes arrive after escaping from prison. So what did you think of that? Like screaming in the rain, coming out of the mud.
Was awesome.
And, well, I loved it. And then pulling him by the leg.
I was like, what the hell? But I think that was also one of those things that I saw a long time ago when I saw it for the first time, that you could tell that it was
that it was a hole with something to go through.
That it was
like cushion. A bladder. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was all just cushion that they just pushed through. And it was, of course, there's enough mud and stuff to make it look, but it so perfectly was cut that when they pushed it open and stuff like that, I was like, oh, okay, you could tell, but it was funny.
They convince Hy to shelter them and tempt him to return to his old life of crime. That evening, Hy has an intense nightmare of monstrous biker Leonard Smalls. So this is also where he's so kind of like the part where we said when they steal the baby and she's just like, I love him so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, I'm going to go get some Huggies. And then he kisses the baby goodbye and he goes, and that's where Chip and I might go to that. It's now a Circle K. It's a short stop and it's right here, kind of close to my house, about 7 minutes away. And she leaves him. She's like, fuck you. And then he's outside the window, like, where's she going? And then gets shot at by the clerk. And then the cop is pulling up.
We should have counted how many times she called him a some bitch. Bitch.
Yeah. Well, and also like, we're going to get your daddy. Hold on, Nathan Jr. We're going to get your daddy. And then later, like,
we're taking a shortcut.
Yeah, we're taking a shortcut. Yeah, and doing all that. But also the part of it's just the thing of him getting the babies, and like the joke of that is that they start crying and he has to keep them quiet before he can take them, because then they'll cause a disturbance. So he brings the one and then the other one starts crying. So he puts that one down, gets the other one to calm him down. And then the other one's going crazy. And then he's got them all laying around. And then he's like, where'd that one go? And it's like going for the fucking stairs. The next day, Hy's foreman. So then they tell Gail and Evil, like, you need to be gone because of this. And also they're like, oh, somebody wears the pants around here, like, you know, and he's like, just, you know, you guys are fucking like, he's trying to be straight, even though they kidnapped a baby. And they explain it later, like, we're not doing, you know, we wouldn't have done any good. We did a bad thing as well, you know. Hy's foreman Glenn and his family visit when Glenn suggests that he and Hy exchange wives. Hy angrily punches Glenn in the face. So that part, those fucking kids, he's like, get off of Hy's car. And they're just fucking pulling the windshield wiper and pulling all the shit out.
It made me think of a Christmas Vacation. And like,
exactly.
Like that was the type of family that shows up at your house.
I was thinking we could have easily put this with Vacation. Like it would have worked. But the other thing that we did back on that chase thing, not to bypass any of this, because there's some good writing in there and just good stuff. So he gets back in the car when she picks him up from running, and he's like, honey, you know, and she just punches him. And then he gives that like weird look, like with birds chirping around his head. But then as she's bitching at him, he's like, turn right here, turn left right here, turn right here. And you're like, what is he doing? And then he reaches out and scoops up the Huggies. And I remember when I first saw it, I was like, awesome. He remembered where he dropped the Huggies. That's so cool. He still got that. I was
confused too as I'm watching it. And he kept telling her, I'm like, she knows how to get home. And I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah. It ain't no Ozzie and Harriet. We ain't no Ozzie and Harriet. So that's the other thing where Glenn. So at first I told Chip, I go, let's just do recast it of the main people. And then I was like, no, Glenn and Dot are too good. Like we gotta put this, you know, in there. And so that's that whole thing, just him being like, did I tell you about how many Polacks does it take to screw in a light bulb? I don't know. How many, Glenn? It takes 3. And that's it. And he's like, well, what? And then he goes, oh, wait, I told that wrong. Why does it take 3? I don't know why. And then he doesn't have the joke. So he's like, because they're so goddamn stupid. That's why. And you're like, okay. And then he's like, did I tell you about the Polak that had his hands full of shit? Brought you and said, look what I almost stepped in. And then later when he's like, maybe he told one too many Polak jokes and he's doing the hand thing to the cop, and the cop is Kowalski. And it's like, oh shit. That night, Hy decides to leave Ed and Nathan Jr. and plans to join Gail and Evil in a bank robbery. Glenn returns the next day to fire Hy, revealing that he has inferred that Hy and Ed kidnapped Nathan Jr. Glenn threatens to turn them in unless they agree to give him and his wife custody of the child. Gail and Evil overhear this conversation and, following a conflict with Hy, kidnap Nathan Jr. themselves. So that's where he's... Yeah.
I have to ask you this question. Probably there's no answer to it. But when he comes in the door and they got the baby right away, like for some weird reason, it's like Cage is having a fit with his. He's like this. He's got a weird look on his face. I was like,
maybe
and
that's
he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like he's having a seizure or something on one side of his face.
Maybe it's him. Like it's supposed to be like he wanted to visualize it instead of like knowing that they know because he saw the blinds go down. So he knows like, oh shit. So it's almost a oh shit face. Like I hope they don't know, you know, I hope they didn't hear anything. And then when he walks in and sees them with the baby, he's like, oh shit, you know, now he knows.
But it was weird though, because it was like the side of his face didn't look like that. It looked like Joker kind of
maybe he did
really bad.
Maybe he had like that look, like this is my character, like this is my look. Once freed from bondage, so then they tie him up and they take the baby, and she's gone. And once freed from bondage, Hyde joins with the dependent Ed to rescue the baby. So that's where he's putting all the guns in. Like, I know I messed up, I fucked up, and all this. And then he's like, let's go get Nathan Jr. And like, it's funny just because it's so fast.
And it's funny because he's sitting there talking about, I'm gonna go straight. We're gonna do things right. As he's doing, he's grabbing a new gun every time.
Yeah, more guns. Yeah. Meanwhile, Leonard Smalls approaches Nathan, Arizona, and offers to bring back his son for $50,000, but indicates his plan to sell the baby on the black market when Nathan Sr. refuses to pay. And also, he's like, I was worth $30,000 in 1954 money, and you're like, wait, were you kidnapped as a baby? Like, what the fuck? Gail and Evel grow attached to Nathan Jr. after nearly leaving him behind at a robbed convenience store. The two promise never to give him up. So yeah, at first they're like, we're gonna collect that money, and then he's like, he smiled at me and he made a mess. And just John Goodman just driving like totally like relaxed and just like, what is it, Evel? Well, I had you know. And then they pull in and he's like, how do these diapers work? And he's like, he goes, well, you put them over the bottom and over the crotch area. No, old timer, like I know how they go. I just need to know, do I need fasteners? And he's like, no, they got these little tape things on them. He's like, okay. And then he pulls the gun out and he's like, and that's when he takes the balloons. He's like, these blow up into funny shapes at all? Not unless round is funny. And then later, of course, when he's asking, like we said, off mic, but when he's showing John Goodman, he's showing Gail like, hey, look what I got. And Gail's like, do they blow into funny shapes at all? He goes, no, just circular. Like now it's a different joke. Like, and then that's when they're like, we're never going to give the baby up. And then they go to look for the baby and the baby's not there.
Yeah.
And also way before that, when they escape and they're throwing on that pomade, like that's a lot of fucking pomade. I'm like, oh my God, it's so great. Just something like that is just funny. Just
and the first thing I thought of is like, well, that's a good way to get out of handcuffs.
Yeah. True.
Handcuffs, you just rub it on your head and just whoop, I'm gonna slide right out.
So after they say we're never going to give him up, then they again leave Nathan Jr. behind during the bank robbery. So at first they put him up on the roof when they're escaping from stealing the balloons and the Huggies, and they drive away. And then they're like, where is he? And then they look at each other and they're like, ah, and then they stop. And my wife's like, he flew off, like, holy shit. And I'm like, and then when they find him just sitting on the thing, she's like, I guess they didn't put him on the roof. I go, no, they put him on the roof, but he just happened to fall off. Okay. Yeah. And did you see how old that chair was though, too? How much baby seats have changed since the 80s? Like when they're first walking by the camera after they tie him up, I'm like, wow, that's got like metal bars and shit in it. And like, all weird.
Yeah. But the cool thing is I realized, that they kind of set things up for when they both break out of prison and he busts out of the ground. He's like, just does the whole screaming thing for the whole time.
Yeah.
He's pulling him out.
Then
when they're screaming because they realize they left the baby.
Yeah.
And they're screaming the whole time. I was like, that makes sense. Because it's not out of norm. Like, you know.
Yeah. And just funny because it keeps going, you know, it's just, you know, it's why the joke about if you fell off of an infinite tall building, like you would, like you still fall, you have to keep breathing. So then they go to rob
as you're falling.
Yeah. Now they go to rob the bank because that's the whole reason High wrote the letter, like, I'm going to leave, I'm going to go do this. And he changes his mind because they tie him up and they take the baby. And then they're robbing the bank. And that's when another funny part, they go, freeze. Everybody get down on the ground. And he's like, which is it? You want me to freeze or lay on the ground? If I freeze, I'm standing here. If I move to the ground, I'm in motion. And they go, shut up. And then he's like, yeah, Gail. And he goes, what? I told you not to use my name. And you're surprised that Evil comes up with, that's your code name. And he's like, yeah, my code name. Yeah, that's my code name, everybody. And you're like, it's too late.
We use code names. Yeah.
You're like, oh my God. But then they leave Nathan Jr. again after the bank robbery, allowing Smalls to capture the baby before High and Ed arrive. So he drives by with his motorcycle, scoops up the baby, puts it right there in the front.
Good ornament.
Yeah. In the ensuing struggle, Ed grabs Nathan Jr. while High occupies Smalls. So she's like, you warthog from hell. And she's like taking her tie off and her shit. And you're like, oh shit, like you pissed off, she's not a mother yet, but you pissed off a mom. Yeah. And she goes after him. And then while he jumps on him, then then she takes a baby. And the
cool part is like when she's walking towards him, he takes the knife to go throw it and he's going to chuck it right at her.
Yeah.
But then High shoots him in the hand for one of the blades, and he looks at him like, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
Throws the other knife at him to knock the gun out of his hand.
Exactly. Despite being severely beaten, High ultimately manages to kill Smalls by pulling the pin out of one of the hand grenades on Smalls' jacket. This is something, it doesn't matter because it's a comedy, but did you notice all the hand grenades had the handle still on them? Even though the pins were pulled, like he throws at the rabbit or throws wherever, it still had the, you're supposed to pull it, let it go, and the handle flies off, and now it's live.
Yeah.
And the little handle was always on it. Like even when he pulled the pin, he's like,
oh, yeah, I didn't notice that.
But what was funny was that whole fight. He's trying to climb under the car and he's dragging him out. He's got his fingers dragging through the dirt. And then that thing of like showing him the ring and, he's got pulled the grenade.
And just mouthing, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like,
feeling, yeah, you killed the guy. Feeling remorseful for their actions, High and Ed sneak into the Arizona home to return Nathan Jr., but are caught by Nathan Sr. After learning why High and Ed took his son, Nathan Sr. sympathizes with their predicament and decides not to turn them in. When he learns that High and Ed are considering splitting up, Nathan Sr. advises them to sleep on it. In the final scene, High sleeps beside Ed and has a series of prophetic dreams about the future fates of his friends. Gail and Evil willingly return to prison after realizing that they aren't ready to return to society. What we forgot to say was that girl puts the dye pack in there, and then they open it up and they're like, and he's looking at the money. That's a lot of money. And all of a sudden, just boom, out of the blue, like one of those Pulp Fiction moments, like you said, like you're like, oh shit, that's hilarious.
But I love that, like he doesn't like try to stop right away, like instantly try and stop. He's still driving while trying to wipe away the
and wiping it away a lot because you've been that way where you're like, I'll just clean the window. Oh wait, it's smeared more. I got to clean more. Yeah. Realizing they aren't ready to return to society, Glenn is ticketed by a Polish American police officer after offending him with one Polak joke too many. And Nathan Jr. eventually becomes a football star after getting a football for Christmas from a kindly couple who wished to remain unknown. The dream ends with an elderly couple, implied to be High and Ed, enjoying a holiday visit from a large family of children and grandchildren. The end.
Yay.
Yes.
And the cool thing is to go back when the bomb, the dye pack blows. It's a good thing the baby wasn't in there.
Yeah. Yeah, true. The good people of Arizona took offense to this film's depiction of their state. I didn't take offense to it, but I can get it.
Yeah.
Backlash reached surprisingly high as even the mayor of Scottsdale, Arizona Mayor Herb Drinkwater, proclaimed that the film had, quote, no redeeming social value, and that it, quote, certainly isn't the image Arizona wants to project, unquote. So
and it's funny though, because what did they say? The Tempe starter house was what the trailer house they were in. He called it a starter house. So I was cracking up at that.
I missed that, but I mean, I heard it, but yeah, that's hilarious. Despite the cult following of their later films, such as The Big Lebowski, in 2000, Ethan Coen described their second feature as, quote, the last movie we made that made any significant amount of money. Now, this was in 2000. This is before No Country for Old Men.
Mm-hmm.
So, review, Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus reads, quote, a terrifically original, eccentric screwball comedy. Raising Arizona may not be the Coens' most disciplined movie, but it's one of their most purely entertaining, unquote.
Yep.
So I give this movie 5 out of 5 celluloid hearts. Chip, what do you give it?
You give it 5.
Oh, sweet. I am very glad.
I laughed through the whole damn thing.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I wasn't ripping it apart like I was years ago when I first saw it. I think it's very much a thing of I need to go through and watch every one of the Coen Brothers movies and take it for what it is, what it's meant to be, period.
Yeah. Well, and it's the thing, what reminded me of that for you for Raising Arizona was we talked about it kind of before when my friend Joe Weedman first saw Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, he was like, this is the funniest movie I've ever seen. I said, funnier than Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, because that was our all-time favorite comedy of all time. And he said, yes. And I go, what? And I go to his house because he bought it, previously viewed video. And I watched it. And like you with Raising Arizona, I was like, this is madcap craziness. Like, I'm trying, Captain, it just won't work. While he's like looking in the camera and all the stuff is just weird. And you might laugh a little bit. But then you go back and you watch it for what it is. And you get like, oh, this is zany, like wacky, like I get it. And then you totally
get the way I felt about Cable Guy. I think the first time I saw Cable Guy, I didn't get it. And
where people aren't seeing the dark comedy of it. Yeah. It's like a dark comedy. Because more you feel bad for the Cable Guy. You're like, poor guy can't make friends. And it's not Jim Carrey being zany and wacky.
Yeah.
So I'm glad, because for me, I was like, oh my God, how is Chip going to take this? Is he going to be like, why is everybody talking about this movie so much? I don't like it or whatever. And, but also the other part of me, you and I were trying to figure out a Nicolas Cage movie to do. And I'm glad we picked this one, because that's like the beginning of Nic Cage. And now we're going to be at 2022, the now Nicolas Cage, when we go and see the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
And this is the first movie where I wasn't so focused on like having to pause it, stop it, or whatever to do like for those moments for recasted, that I was getting lost actually in laughing in the movie. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got to do recast. Right. I was getting into it. Like, oh crap, stop it. Pause. So
no, and that's one where I was watching the whole thing, but then I got to a part where the part that I missed until I was watching. These guys, they did like an hour-long video, this guy and his son, of like going to all the Raising Arizona locations. It's kind of boring. It was like, really, you shouldn't do this, but some of it was good. But they would play clips from like that he would record off of the TV, and he would play the clip. And the clip that he played was that one of the old man counting 852 and getting back up. And I had missed that because I was trying to tell the wife, like, watch, they're going back for the baby, honey, and they're going really fast. And I'm like, look, honey, look. And then I missed him sticking back up and being like, oh, they are coming back after 5 minutes. Oh shit. So
what I loved about that scene was when he popped up and he saw them coming back, and he goes back down. As he's watching them come back, you're hearing them screaming.
Yeah.
Inside the store, you can hear them from the car pulling up, them screaming.
Exactly. Oops, hang on. Oh. No, I'm very glad that you saw it. It's those things. Like I said, it's very, for me, I want you to see a movie, but then I'm also worried that it'll be and granted, when I look back on it, Sugarland Express, I get it wasn't a 5-star, but it was good. But you gave it, I think, 3.5, which is above average. So stuff like that, where I go, oh, I want Chip to love this. I hope he gets it. And then if you didn't, I'd be like, oh, but then you want to go, no, you got to watch it again. It's one of those, no, you don't get it. You don't understand. And you don't want to be that guy.
Which I actually had the opposite effect, I think, of that on Snake Eyes. I think when I first saw it, I loved it. And then I saw it again later on. And I was like, ugh. Like I just,
the Nicolas Cage Snake Eyes. Yeah. Not the new.
Yeah.
And G.I. Joe.
The Nicolas Cage. Yeah. And I think later on I watched it again. And I was like, this. I think I built it up before and like saw it and thought it was so great. And then I go back and watch it and it just does not hold up. And I was like, oh, total opposite.
I liked it because of Brian De Palma, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, all right, Chip, you want to get to Phil's film favorite of the week, which we didn't do last week when we did Bridge on the River Kwai. Yeah. So this one is called, I've talked about it before. I don't watch as many movies. I need to, though. I did watch a blaxploitation movie called Black Belt Jones. Mm-hmm. It was Jim Kelly, like kicking ass. It was pretty cool. Is it Jim Kelly? Anyway,
did they say jive at all?
No, I don't think so. It was the 70s. Damn. But yeah, he just he kicked some guys.
I want jive. I want turkey. I want jive turkey.
There was a car wash. Well, then you got to watch Airplane and hear Barbara Billingsley be like, "Oh, I speak jive." So what I did see was, and Chip laughs at me when I say I haven't seen much, because before we started recording this, I just finished the serial of the Green Hornet from like the 40s or something. And, but they actually had that music from the show in the 60s. And I was like, oh, wow, that kind of surprised me, the Kill Bill. Anyway.
Yeah.
Nice. So this one it's a series, not really film, but it's called The Thing About Pam. I told Chip about this. Chip's like, I heard it wasn't as directly storytelling, but they say that in the beginning. Some things have been changed. But What's Her Name does so good. It's based on 2011 murder of Betsy Faria that resulted in her husband, Russ, conviction, but he insisted he did not kill her. This brutal crime set off a chain of events that would expose a diabolical scheme deeply involving Pam Hupp. So she not only killed Betsy, she killed her mother, that they're trying to open up an investigation on that. And she killed this guy who at the end, she was like, help, you're breaking into my house. And what was fun also was after watching this, what's that girl's name? She deserves an Emmy for this. But after this, she was in a Jim Carrey movie. But hang on, I'll bring up her name. Everybody's yelling at me again because I'm looking at her right there. Renee Zellweger. She was in Me, Myself, and Irene, which is great. So then Dateline had like an updated version of this. So you were able to watch that and then talk to her husband, Russ. And Russ was like, yeah, I can't believe there's a movie about it now, and like all this stuff. And then it would cut in the movie stuff, and it was really cool. And then talk about how crazy Pam Hupp was. So it was very cool.
He's like, there's a movie about it now, and I didn't see any money from it. What the fuck?
Yeah, I know. I was waiting for that. Did you anything you've been watching that's good? Not good?
No, just catching up on The Rookie. That's about it. We've been doing Mike and Molly. But
that's good. Yeah, that's fun. When she pulls his nose hairs out and she's like, these nose hairs are driving me crazy on their first date. My wife's like, that's how I feel. Pull your nose hairs. I'm like, yeah, I know. Something else was what? We've been watching Ozark. So we're like, I had watched the first 1.5, or I was into the second season a little bit and I never finished it. And then the wife's like, let's watch Ozark. So we started again at number 1 and watched all the way through. And now we're on season 4. And I'm like this morning, I was like, let's watch another one. She's like, no, we have like 4 episodes left before it comes back on the 29th. So she's like, so we have for the remaining 4 or 3. She's like, I want to space it out because I'll be pissed if we get to episode 6, and then I'm like, now I gotta wait for 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm like, okay. And so Ozark is really good. But we'll be back on April 29th for
Nick, you've been living at the Sunset Tower for over a year.
They love having me there.
You owe them $600,000.
Okay, I'm gonna deal with all that. But I'm gonna get this next role. And when I do, all of that changes. Then I'm back.
Not that you went anywhere.
Nicolas Cage, oh my God, I love you. He was so good in The Rock.
What about Gone in 60 Seconds?
Have you seen Croods 2?
No, I'm 44 years old. Why the fuck would I see Croods 2? I've seen Face Off and Con Air.
We got another offer.
What's it about?
You head to southern Spain and you attend a wealthy gentleman's birthday party.
I would never do that.
It's $1 million, Nick.
I'll take it. The guy that owns this house, what's his name?
Javi.
Look, if Javi wants me to fuck his wife or watch me watch him fuck his wife, that's a no-go. You understand? That's no bueno.
I am Javi.
Nic Cage.
Nicolas Cage? That's fucking cool.
I am so happy that you're here.
Is this supposed to be me? It's grotesque. I'll give you 20,000 for it. What have you got there?
Divine inspiration.
I'm paranoid. Let's just get up on the count of 3 and run.
They're coming!
Grab my hand. You're heavier than you look.
I have a very big head.
You go!
I'll never forget you, Habs.
That's right, from 2022, brand new movie, newest movie we've ever done. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I know, Chip's amazed.
Oh my God!
Write our Patreon, Chip. We don't have a Patreon. But yeah, Chip will be in town. We're gonna go see this movie at a Harkins Theater, and it should be fun. I think we'll get popcorn, maybe some nachos, yeah, and some soda and some jalapenos and some cheese and yummy.
We're just gonna bring a tray so that we can just put everything on it on our
That's right.
laps so that we'll be happy.
Well, you know, my wife gets those sharing boxes, and then you pour some of the popcorn in it, and then you can share it with these. So you eat your popcorn out of your bucket, and then you have extra in the little box that you can put stuff on.
Nice.
But yeah, it'll be fun. So yeah, I can't wait for that. Chip and I are both in the thing of everybody on Instagram. A lot of people are like, you know, there's clips shared, and there's people just like, oh, this is really great. And like Chip wrote his friend Ian, he was like, the more I see, the more excited I get. And I'm the same way. I had to stop myself from watching any more shit because
you're going to watch the whole movie.
Because I went on their website and it was all these clips, and I started watching them, and I'm like, I need to stop because I wouldn't have known about this. Or like today I saw one before we started recording that was kind of important. And I'm like, I should have left that alone too. It would have been funnier to. So anyway, yeah, I can't wait. Chip will be in town. We'll go have him go take him to a toy store. We're gonna get some toys, look at some old toys, reminisce, and then
find some pops.
Go to Mexican food, get some Funko Pops, and then we're gonna go to the movie, and then come back here and record. So it'll be fun. I'll actually have Chip right here where I can reach out and touch him. So that'll be nice. Yeah.
Good plan, Junior.
That's right. Oh, thanks. Claus, he's out there. Water's wet, sky's blue, women have secrets. Sir, don't get me started, Chip. Now I want to go do the black comedies.
What happens if you hit him with a surfboard? Surfs up.
Oh man, they're pants. Do they have a TV in them or something? No, they're just pants.
No.
Certain movie. I'm old. I'm very old.
You know
certain
how to
movies,
circumvent that door?
Circumvent, that's what you call it. Yeah. Certain movies stick with you. They stay in your head and heart forever. So from all of us at My Celluloid Heart, keep watching movies. Chip, do these balloons blow into funny shapes at all?
Not unless circles funny.
Now you fucked it up, fucker. I thought, is Chip gonna get the is right? But no, he wanted to fuck it up totally.
I'm just gonna throw some twang into it.
He's funny. Yeah. Well, you're like, I'm gonna fuck it up.
Because I'm from Arizona and it comes natural.
Exactly. Well, everything's changed. All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.